Story 1. The Truck That Remembers. The blood on my steering wheel wasn't mine, and I'd been driving alone for the past 11 hours. Fresh blood, still wet, smeared across the leather wrap in a handprint that was too small to be my own, child-sized with 4 distinct fingers and a thumb pressed into the material like someone had gripped the wheel in terror. I touched it. Warm. The cab temperature was 68 degrees. My hands were on the wheel at 10 and 2, and this blood had appeared between one blink and the next, materializing from nothing while I drove 73 miles per hour down I-90 through South Dakota's emptiness. My name is Vincent Calabresi, and I'd been hauling freight for 22 years without incident. I knew my truck, a 2019 Freightliner Cascadia that I'd bought new, every system and component familiar to me as my own heartbeat. I knew what belonged in this cab and what didn't. Blood didn't belong, especially not blood that appeared spontaneously at 2:34 a.m. on a clear October night when I was the only living thing for miles. I grabbed a shop rag from behind my seat and wiped the steering wheel clean. The blood came away easily, soaking into the cloth, and I threw the rag onto the passenger seat. Checked my mirrors. Empty highway behind me, empty highway ahead. The dash lights cast everything in pale green, making the remaining blood traces look black. My CB crackled. Pure static, no voices, but underneath the white noise I heard something rhythmic. Breathing, maybe, or the sound of someone running. I turned the volume down. The breathing continued at the same level, unaffected by the knob's position. The blood reappeared on the steering wheel. Same handprint, same position, like it had never been wiped away. But I'd just cleaned it. I'd watched the rag absorb it, seen the wheel come clean. I wiped it again, threw the second rag onto the passenger seat on top of the first. The blood returned before I'd finished the throwing motion. Instant. Impossible. "Okay," I said aloud, my voice too loud in the cab's silence. "Okay, what the fuck is this?" My truck lurched. Not mechanically, the engine was smooth, transmission solid, no indication of problems. But the whole cab shifted like the frame had been picked up and set down an inch to the left. My coffee cup jumped in the holder. The rags on the passenger seat slid toward the door. And the passenger seat wasn't empty anymore. A child sat there. A girl, maybe 7 years old, wearing a yellow dress that was torn and stained with dirt and blood. Her hair was matted, face pale, eyes wide, and staring directly ahead through the windshield. She wasn't breathing, wasn't moving, was just there, occupying space that had been empty 1 second before. I screamed, yanked the wheel right, and my Freightliner swerved across 2 lanes before I regained control. The girl didn't react to the motion, didn't brace herself or grab the door handle. Just sat there, perfectly still, staring forward. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "How did you get in my truck?" She didn't respond, didn't blink. I reached out to touch her shoulder, and my hand passed through her like she was made of smoke. Not smoke. Memory. She was a projection, an image overlaid on reality, and touching her revealed the passenger seat beneath, empty and solid. My hand was covered in blood when I pulled it back. The same blood from the steering wheel coating my fingers, dripping onto my jeans. I wiped it on my shirt, and it vanished the moment the fabric absorbed it. Then reappeared on my hand. An infinite loop of blood that couldn't be cleaned. The girl's head turned, slowly, mechanically rotating to face me. Her eyes were empty, pupils blown wide, and when her mouth opened, what came out wasn't a child's voice. "You killed me here," she said in a chorus of adult voices, men and women speaking in perfect unison. "You killed all of us here. This truck remembers." "I never killed anyone," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I felt uncertainty creeping in. Had I? 22 years of driving, hundreds of thousands of miles, countless close calls. Had there been an accident I'd suppressed? A hit and run I'd blocked from memory? The girl pointed forward through the windshield. Mile marker 247, the voices said. That's where I died, where you killed me. September 19th, 2006. I checked the upcoming markers. Mile marker 245 flashed past. 246. I was approaching 247 and I had no memory of ever being on this stretch of road on September 19th, 2006. I'd have been doing what? Where had I been that autumn? The memories felt slippery, impossible to grasp. Mile marker 247 appeared in my headlights and the girl vanished. The blood on my hand vanished. The steering wheel was clean. I started to relax. A hallucination, maybe. Fatigue or stress or a bad burrito at the last truck stop. I'd drive another hour, find a rest area, sleep it off. Then I saw what was standing on the shoulder at mile marker 247. A man. Middle-aged, wearing a suit that was torn and burned, his face blackened with soot. He watched me drive past, and as I did, he raised his hand, the same gesture as the girl's pointing, and mouthed words I couldn't hear but somehow understood. You killed me here. My truck lurched again, the frame shifting, reality adjusting. The passenger seat was occupied once more, but not by the girl, by the man in the burned suit. He sat exactly as the girl had, staring forward, not breathing, covered in the evidence of his death. July 3rd, 2012, he said in those same multiple voices. Mile marker 182, you fell asleep. I was driving a Honda Civic. You crossed the center line. My wife was in the passenger seat. Our son was in the back. No, I whispered. No, I've never fallen asleep at the wheel. I've never caused an accident. But had I? How could I be sure? How many times had I caught myself drifting, jerked awake at the last second, and convinced myself it had been just a moment, just a brief lapse, nothing happened? What if something had happened? What if I'd crossed that center line, caused that crash, and my mind had erased it to protect me from the guilt? Mile marker 182 approached. The man vanished. The seat was empty again. Until it wasn't. A teenage boy this time. His body twisted at wrong angles, bones broken, face crushed on one side. March 22nd, 2018, mile marker 93. You were texting. I was on a motorcycle. He vanished at mile marker 93. An elderly woman appeared. December 8th, 2015, mile marker 156, black ice. You jackknifed. I couldn't stop in time. She vanished. A young couple holding hands appeared together, their bodies mangled. June 14th, 2009. Mile marker 221, you were rushing to make your delivery deadline. We were on our honeymoon. They vanished. More appeared. Dozens of them cycling through the passenger seat every few minutes, each one naming a date and a mile marker and an accusation. Each one claiming I'd killed them. Each one showing me the horrific injuries they'd sustained. I tried to remember, tried to recall any of these incidents, came up empty. But the truck remembered. That's what the girl had said. The truck remembers. This Freightliner was new in 2019. I'd owned it for 4 years. But the deaths they were describing went back to 2006, long before this truck existed. How could it remember things that had happened in other vehicles? Unless the truck wasn't remembering its own history, it was remembering mine. I pulled over, stopped on the shoulder, threw the transmission in park, and sat there shaking. The parade of victims had stopped, the passenger seat finally blessedly empty. I needed to think, needed to figure out what was happening and whether any of this was real. My logbook sat in the compartment beside me. I pulled it out, not the electronic version, but the old paper logs I still kept as backup, flipped through years of entries looking for those dates. September 19th, 2006, July 3rd, 2012, March 22nd, 2018. The pages were blank, not missing, present but empty, the dates listed but no entries recorded, like those days had never happened, like I'd never driven on those dates, never logged miles, never existed in any official capacity. But I had been driving. I knew I had. I'd been working constantly during those years, rarely taking days off. So where were the logs? I checked my phone, opened the Photos app, scrolled back through years of pictures. Found the gaps, weeks at a time with no photos, no evidence of my existence. The gaps aligned with the dates the victims had named. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, the screen showing a photo from 2011, me standing beside a different truck, a Peterbilt I'd driven before the Freightliner. I was smiling in the photo. Looked happy. Looked like someone who hadn't killed anyone. The passenger seat filled again. All of them at once somehow, the girl, the man, the teenager, the elderly woman, the couple, dozens more, all occupying the same space, their forms overlapping and translucent. A chorus of the dead speaking in perfect synchronization. The truck remembers because you can't. You erased us, deleted us, convinced yourself we never existed, but we did. We died because of you. And this truck, this vehicle you drive every day that you trust with your life, it's been collecting us, recording us. We live in the metal and the circuits now. We are the truck. I scrambled for the door handle, needing to get out, to escape. The handle wouldn't move. Locked, though I hadn't locked it. I tried the window. Wouldn't roll down. The truck had trapped me inside with the ghosts of everyone I'd killed. You can't leave, they said. You're part of the truck now, too. Part of the machine that remembers. Every mile you drive, you'll see us. Every death you caused, replayed forever. This is your eternity, Vincent. Driving with your victims, never arriving, never escaping. The engine started by itself. The transmission shifted into drive. My Freightliner pulled back onto the highway without me touching the controls, and my hands moved to the steering wheel, covered in blood again, dozens of handprints overlapping, and gripped it. Not by choice, by compulsion. I was a passenger now. The truck was driving itself, using my body as an interface, and I could only watch as it accelerated to 73 miles per hour and continued down I-90. Mile markers passed. Each one brought a new victim, a new accusation, a new memory I couldn't access but that the truck held perfectly preserved. They cycled through the passenger seat in an endless rotation, each one's death replayed in horrible detail. And I realized this would never end. I would drive forever, forced to witness the consequences of actions I couldn't remember committing. The truck would keep me alive somehow. Keep me conscious, make me experience every moment of guilt I'd successfully suppressed for years. My CB crackled back to life. A voice came through, my voice but older, worn down. I've been driving for 47 years now, it said. The truck won't let me age, won't let me die, just keeps me here behind the wheel, watching them appear and disappear. If you're hearing this, you're next. Your truck is learning, collecting, and when it has enough victims, enough memories, it'll take control. You'll become what I am, a ghost driving a ghost truck haunted by everyone you've killed. I tried to respond, but my throat wouldn't work. The truck had taken my voice, too. Mile marker 247 approached again. The girl reappeared, still pointing, still accusing. But this time I saw more. Saw myself in the driver's seat of an older truck, saw my hand on the wheel, saw the exact moment I'd drifted out of my lane, saw the girl's father swerve to avoid me, saw their car leave the road and tumble down the embankment, saw myself continue driving, saw myself convince myself it hadn't happened, saw myself erase the memory so completely that I'd believed my own lie for 17 years. The truck remembers, and now, finally, so do I. I killed them all, every single one. And this truck, this machine I'd trusted, this vehicle I'd thought of as just metal and circuits, had been recording everything, building a prison for me, waiting for the right moment to spring the trap. That moment was now, and it would last forever. The girl smiled at me with her dead child's face. "Welcome home, Vincent," all the voices said. "Welcome to the truck that remembers." I drive still. I-90 through South Dakota, forever cycling through the same 300 miles, the same accusations, the same unbearable guilt. The sun never rises, the night never ends, just me, the truck, and the victims I've spent decades trying to forget. The truck remembers, it always remembers. And now I remember too. That's the real horror. Not the ghosts, not the blood, not even the realization that I'm a killer. It's knowing that I deserve this, every moment of it. Forever. Story 2. The Parallel Highway. I'd been driving alongside myself for 40 minutes when I decided to try waving at my doppelganger. And that's when the other me pressed a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. The parallel highway, identical to mine, running maybe 50 feet to my right, separated by a wall of black fog that never dissipated, carried a perfect copy of my Kenworth T680, hauling an identical refrigerated trailer driven by an identical version of me. I'd been watching him from my peripheral vision since the highways had split, noting how our movement synchronized, how we reached for our coffee cups at the exact same moment, how our trucks maintained the exact same speed without either of us adjusting the cruise control. When I'd raised my hand to wave, hoping for some acknowledgement that this impossibility was mutual, the other me had instead reached into his glove box, pulled out a revolver I didn't own, placed it against his temple, and fired. My name is Raymond Torres, and I'd been driving through Nevada on US 50, the loneliest road in America, for 6 hours when the highway had divided. Not diverged, not split into 2 lanes, but duplicated. One moment I was on a single stretch of desert highway. The next there were 2 highways running parallel, separated by that wall of fog. And on the other highway was me. Same truck, same load of frozen meat bound for Reno. Same tired eyes and 3-day beard. Growth. Same everything. The gunshot on the parallel highway produced no sound that crossed to my side. I saw the flash and saw the other me's head snap back, saw the spray of blood across his driver's side window, saw his truck begin to drift right across his lanes, heading for his shoulder. And I felt my own hands twitch on the wheel, my own head ache where the bullet should have entered. My own sense of mortality spiked so hard my vision grayed at the edges. The other me's truck didn't crash. It straightened out, regained its lane, and continued driving as if nothing had happened. The driver's window was still covered in blood, but the driver was sitting upright again, head intact, reaching for his coffee cup with movements that perfectly mirrored my own. He died and undied in the span of 5 seconds. I grabbed my CB mic. Breaker 19, this is Desert Runner. Is anyone else seeing this parallel highway situation on US 50? I've got what looks like another version of the road running alongside me with another version of my truck. Requesting any information. Over. The response came not from my CB speakers, but from the parallel highway. The other me was speaking into his CB, and somehow I could hear it. Not through my radio, but directly in my mind, like telepathy filtered through static. "Don't try to cross over," my voice said, but wrong, layered with harmonics that made it sound like multiple versions of me speaking simultaneously. The fog between the highways isn't fog. It's the space where the divergence happened, where your timeline split from mine. If you enter it, you'll experience both timelines simultaneously. You'll die in mine while living in yours. The human mind can't process that. You'll fragment. I looked at the fog wall. It was perfectly opaque, perfectly vertical, extending from the ground to maybe 20 feet in the air, then stopping. Above it, the sky was normal. Stars, moon, the vast Nevada darkness. But within the fog, I occasionally saw shapes moving. Figures or suggestions of figures passing through like shadows in smoke. How did this happen? I asked aloud, not bothering with the CB since apparently my thoughts were audible to him anyway. You made a choice, the other me replied. Back at the last truck stop 47 minutes ago. You chose coffee instead of energy drink. In my timeline, I chose energy drink. That single choice created a divergence, a split in causality. Usually the timelines separate completely. But here, on US 50, in this specific stretch of Nevada where the desert is thin and reality is negotiable, the timelines stayed adjacent. Parallel. We can see each other. Watch each other's choices play out. I remembered the truck stop. Remembered standing in front of the cooler debating between coffee and Monster Energy. Had chosen coffee because it was cheaper. Such a trivial decision. How could that create parallel timelines? It can't, the other me said, reading my thoughts. That's not how causality works. The split happened earlier, weeks earlier, months, maybe years. The coffee was just the visible marker, the point where our timelines diverged enough to become distinct. Everything before that moment we shared, everything after were separate. Then why can we see each other? Because US 50 is liminal space. The desert here is barely real. Drive it long enough and you'll feel it. The way the road seems less solid. The way the landscape repeats in patterns that shouldn't be possible. The way time gets slippery. This highway exists in multiple states simultaneously. It's the perfect place for parallel timelines to brush against each other. I looked back at the other highway. The other me was looking at me now, making direct eye contact across the 50 feet of fog. His expression was hollow, exhausted, like he'd been driving for years instead of hours. What happened to you? I asked. Why did you shoot yourself? Because I've been on this parallel highway for 6 weeks, he said. Not 6 hours like you. In my timeline, the split happened earlier. I've been driving alongside versions of myself for 43 days, watching them make different choices, seeing how my life branches and splits and creates new me's. I've watched 17 versions of me die. I've watched 8 go insane. I've watched 3 reach Reno and deliver their cargo and cease to exist because their timeline reached its natural conclusion. And I'm still here, still driving, still splitting. As he spoke, I saw it. More highways appearing beyond his, visible through brief gaps in the fog. Dozens of them, hundreds, each one carrying a version of my Kenworth, a version of me, all driving through the Nevada night, all separated by walls of black fog. We weren't just parallel, we were infinite. How do I stop this? I asked, panic rising in my chest. How do I get back to a single timeline? You don't, the other me said. Once you're on the parallel highway, you're here forever. You keep splitting, keep diverging until there are so many versions of you that you lose track of which one is the original. Until you can't remember what choices led you here or what choices might lead you somewhere else. You just drive and split and watch yourself multiply. I checked my mirrors. Behind me, the highway looked normal. Single lane, single road, no fog walls. But ahead I could see more fog forming, creating new barriers, new divisions. More parallel highways branching off from mine. Don't look behind you, the other me warned. Behind you is the past, the unified timeline. If you look too long, you'll try to reverse. Try to go back to before the split. That's how you go insane. You can't go backward, can only go forward, can only keep splitting. But I did look. Couldn't help it, and in my mirrors I saw dozens of my trucks, all following me, all slightly different. One had damage to the front bumper. One was missing a headlight. One was on fire but continuing to drive. And in each cab a version of me, all with different expressions. Some terrified, some resigned, some grinning with madness. They'd been following me the whole time. I just hadn't noticed until now. When does it end? I whispered. It doesn't, the other me said. That's the point. US 50 is called the loneliest road because you're supposed to be alone here. But we're not alone. We're infinitely accompanied by ourselves. Every version of us that ever could exist does exist here on the parallel highways. We drive until we can't anymore, until we shoot ourselves or crash or simply stop, and then we restart. The timeline loops or continues or branches again, and we keep driving. I tried to think of a solution. Could I get off US 50, take a different route? But when I looked for exits, there were none. The highway stretched endlessly forward, perfectly straight, no off-ramps or intersections visible. There are exits, the other me said. But they lead to parallel Renos, parallel versions of the city, each one slightly different. You'll make your delivery to a warehouse that's almost but not quite the one you were expecting. And then you'll get another load, another job, another route. And eventually that route will bring you back to US 50, back to the parallel highways. You can't escape, none of us can. I watched another version of me on another parallel highway. This one visible through a gap in the fog to my left, crash his truck into the barrier. The Kenworth crumpled, jackknifed, rolled 3 times. I felt the impact in my own body, felt my ribs crack, felt the steering column crush my chest. Then the sensation faded and the crashed truck was driving again, undamaged, like the accident had never happened. Death isn't an exit either, my other self explained. I've died 47 times in the past 6 weeks, shot myself, crashed, had a heart attack, got pulled over by police that turned out to be something wearing police uniforms and they ate me. Every time I reset. Keep driving. The parallel highway doesn't allow endings. Only continuations. Only more splits, more versions, more infinite repetitions of the same drive through the same desert. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why warn me if there's no escape? Because you're new, he said. You've only been split for 40 minutes. You still think there's a solution? Still think you can figure a way out? I want you to know before you waste weeks trying that there isn't. This is it. This is the rest of your existence. Driving US 50 through infinite Nevada, watching yourself split and multiply and die and reset. Forever. The fog wall between us thinned slightly. I could see the other highway. More clearly now. See the cracks in its pavement, the mile markers that didn't quite match mine. The slight differences in landscape that marked it as a different reality. And I could see his face clearly. My face. Aged beyond what should be possible. He looked 60, 70 years old, though I was 34. The 6 weeks he claimed to have been driving had aged him decades. Time doesn't work right here, he said, seeing my expression. Every split ages you. Every choice wears you down. You'll be where I am soon enough, old and tired and desperate for an ending that never comes. I made a decision, yanked the wheel left toward the fog wall, toward the space between highways. If the other me said not to cross, that it would fragment me, maybe that fragmentation was the exit. Maybe becoming nothing was better than becoming infinite. The truck responded to my steering, turning toward the wall of black fog. The other me screamed. I heard it in my mind, a sound of absolute terror, but I kept turning. The front of my Kenworth entered the fog. Everything stopped, not paused, stopped. Time ceased flowing. I existed in a moment of infinite duration, experiencing every possible version of myself simultaneously. I was the me that chose coffee and the me that chose energy drink. I was the me that crashed and the me that didn't. I was the me that was 34 and the me that was 70. I was all versions at once, occupying the same space, the same consciousness, unable to distinguish which thoughts were mine and which belonged to my other selves. I fragmented. My identity shattered into infinite pieces, each one a different choice, a different outcome, a different life. I experienced dying in the crash. I experienced delivering the load successfully. I experienced going insane and driving off the road into the desert to die of dehydration. I experienced meeting a woman at the next truck stop and falling in love. I experienced never reaching the next truck stop because there was no next truck stop, just infinite highway forever. All of it was real. All of it was happening. All of it was me. And then my truck exited the fog on the other side, onto the parallel highway where the other me had been driving. Time started again. I was whole, single, one consciousness, one identity, one version of myself. But I was on the wrong highway now, the wrong timeline, and looking to my right, I saw the highway I'd just left with a version of me still driving on it, looking confused and terrified. He was the one who'd tried to cross. He was the one who'd fragmented and reformed. And I was... what? His continuation, his replacement, a copy generated by the crossing? I couldn't remember. Couldn't distinguish my memories from his. Couldn't tell if I was Raymond Torres who'd made the crossing or Raymond Torres who'd always been on this highway. The radio crackled. My voice, but different. "Welcome to my timeline," it said. "You're me now, or I'm you. We're all each other here, all the same Raymond, just making different choices, switching highways, fragmenting and reforming. How many times have you crossed? How many times have I? We can't remember anymore, can't track it. We just drive and split and cross and become each other." I looked ahead. More highways, more fog walls, more versions of myself driving identical trucks through identical desert. And I understood. There was no original. No prime Raymond Torres from which all the others had split. Just infinite variations, all equally real, all equally trapped. US 50 stretched ahead into forever, and I drove it, and will drive it, and have always driven it, splitting and merging and crossing between timelines until the distinctions stopped mattering. The loneliest road in America. Except I was never alone. I was always accompanied by myself, infinite times over, each one driving toward a destination none of us would ever reach. I am Raymond Torres. I am all the Raymond Torres. I am driving through Nevada. I have been driving through Nevada for 6 hours, for 6 weeks, for 6 years, for eternity. The highway splits again ahead. I wonder which version of me I'll become this time. I wonder if that version will remember being this version. I wonder if it matters. I drive. I always drive. I will always drive. Forever on the parallel highway, becoming and unbecoming myself with every choice, every split, every crossing. The desert is thin here. Reality is negotiable, and I negotiate it constantly, trading one version of myself for another, never escaping, never arriving, just driving. Forever. Alone with infinity. Story 3. The weight that increases. My trailer's axles were screaming at 89,000 pounds when the manifest said I'd loaded 43,000, and the weight was increasing by roughly 300 pounds every 5 minutes. I'd felt it in the way my Volvo VNL struggled to maintain speed on even the slightest incline, in the way the whole rig shuddered when I hit expansion joints, in the protest of metal and rubber being pushed beyond their design limits. When I'd stopped to check the onboard scale at mile marker 167 on I-70 through Kansas, the display had shown 89,347 pounds and climbing. Climbing, the number ticking upward even as I sat stationary, as if my cargo was somehow gaining mass from nothing, from nowhere, growing heavier with each passing moment. My name is Diana Volkov, and I'd been hauling machine parts from Denver to St. Louis for 15 years with the same shipper, the same routes, the same cargo. Steel components, automotive parts, industrial equipment. Heavy but predictable, manifested properly, secured correctly. I knew weight, knew how it felt when you were pulling 40,000 pounds versus 60,000. Knew the sound your tires made, the strain on your engine, the response time when you hit the brakes. 89,000 pounds was overweight. was illegal, was dangerous, and it was becoming more dangerous every 5 minutes. I'd unhooked the trailer, thinking maybe I could visually inspect the cargo, see if something had shifted or if water had somehow gotten in and added weight. But when I'd opened the rear doors, everything looked exactly as it had in Denver. 42 pallets of steel components, each one labeled and secured with straps, each one accounted for on the manifest. Nothing extra. Nothing that would explain an additional 46,000 pounds of weight. I'd tried calling the shipper. No answer. Tried dispatch. Number disconnected. Tried the receiver in St. Louis. A voice that claimed they had no record of my shipment, no purchase order matching the numbers on my manifest, no expectation of any delivery. I was hauling cargo that officially didn't exist, and it was getting heavier by the minute. I reconnected the trailer, threw my Volvo into gear, and continued east. I needed to reach a truck scale, an official weigh station where I could document this impossibility. Maybe the onboard scale was malfunctioning. Maybe some electronic glitch was making it read wrong. Maybe. But the way the truck handled said otherwise. The weight was real. Mile marker 189. I checked the scale. 92,103 pounds. I'd gained nearly 3,000 pounds in the last 20 minutes. My CB crackled. Westbound driver in the white Volvo pulling the blue dry van. This is Kansas Highway Patrol. Pull over immediately. Your vehicle is displaying irregularities on our remote sensors. Comply now. I looked for a patrol car. Saw nothing. Checked my mirrors. No flashing lights behind me. The highway was completely empty, had been for the last hour. I hadn't seen another vehicle since I'd first noticed the weight issue. Highway Patrol, this is the white Volvo, I transmitted. I'm not seeing you. What's your location? Over. Pull over now, the voice repeated. Identical inflection, identical pacing. Like a recording. Your vehicle is displaying irregularities. I slowed down, moved to the shoulder. Better to deal with cops than to risk my axles breaking from overweight. I stopped, set my brakes, waited. No patrol car appeared. I waited 10 minutes. 15. No one arrived. The CB was silent now. No follow-up from the patrol officer who'd ordered me to stop. I checked my weight scale. 97,734 pounds. I'd gained 5,000 pounds just sitting here. I climbed down from the cab, walked back to the trailer. Placed my hand on the side panel. The metal was warm. Not from engine heat or sun, but from inside. Like something in the cargo was generating heat, was active, was doing something that added mass. I pressed my ear to the trailer wall. Heard nothing at first, then faint and rhythmic, a sound like breathing. Not mechanical, organic. Wet inhalations and exhalations as if the cargo itself had lungs. No, I whispered, stepping back. No, that's not possible. The trailer shifted, subtle but definite, the whole structure moving an inch to the left, then settling. Not from wind. The night was perfectly calm. From inside. From something inside adjusting its position. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, hands shaking. Diana Volkov, said a voice I didn't recognize. Clinical, emotionless, speaking with perfect diction. You are transporting specimen 47J. It is critical that you continue to your destination. Do not open the trailer again. Do not allow the specimen to reach critical mass before delivery. What specimen? I'm hauling machine parts, steel components. That is the manifest's cover story. In reality, you are transporting biological material. Experimental, highly classified. The specimen grows proportionally to the distance traveled. It is currently at 47% of mature mass. If it reaches 100% before you arrive at the collection facility, it will breach containment. You must continue driving. I never agreed to haul biological anything, I said. I haul machine parts, industrial equipment, not experimental specimens. You agreed when you accepted the load. The contract you signed included specific clauses authorizing transportation of sensitive materials. You didn't read it carefully. Most drivers don't. I tried to remember signing anything unusual in Denver. Came up blank. The loading had been standard. Warehouse workers with forklifts. Pallets being secured, manifest being signed on a tablet like always. Had there been additional screens? Terms I'd scrolled past without reading? What happens if it breaches containment? I asked. The voice paused. I heard keyboard clicks in the background. Specimen 47J is a bioengineered organism designed for rapid growth and adaptation. If it breaches containment at its current mass, it will consume everything within a 3-mile radius to fuel further growth. Then expand the radius. Based on current projections, it would reach sufficient mass to become an extinction-level threat within 72 hours. You're fucking with me, I said. This is some kind of prank. Check your weight scale, Diana. I checked. 103,191 pounds, over 100,000 now. Illegal by any standard. My axles were screaming, tires bulging under the pressure. The specimen responds to movement, the voice continued. The act of traveling stimulates its growth mechanisms. If you stop, it grows faster. If you maintain consistent speed, the growth rate stabilizes. Your only option is to continue to the collection facility at optimal velocity. Where's the collection facility? St. Louis. The address on your manifest is correct, but you must arrive within the next 6 hours. After that, the specimen will reach critical mass regardless of your speed or status. And if I just unhook the trailer here, leave it for you to pick up, the specimen can detect attempts at abandonment. It will breach containment immediately. You are bonded to this delivery, Diana. Chemically bonded. The tablet you signed in Denver injected tracers into your skin. The specimen has been imprinted on your biometric signature. If you separate from the trailer by more than 50 feet, it interprets that as abandonment and breaches. I looked at my right hand, where I'd pressed my thumb to the tablet's signature pad. Saw nothing unusual. No mark, no injection site, but I felt it now, a slight warmth, a tingling, like something foreign was in my bloodstream. What is this thing? I asked. What did they make? I can't provide those details, but I can tell you that you're the 17th driver to transport a specimen. The previous 16 all delivered successfully. You will too. You must too. The call disconnected. I stood on the shoulder of I-70, staring at my trailer, feeling the weight of 100,000 pounds of growing horror behind me. The breathing sound was louder now, audible even from outside the trailer. And the metal was bulging slightly, the side panels deforming as whatever was inside expanded. I had no choice. I climbed back into my cab, released the brakes, and continued east. Mile marker 203, weight 109,447 pounds. The Volvo was struggling, engine laboring, transmission hunting for the right gear. I couldn't maintain highway speed anymore. Was down to 45 miles per hour on flat ground, 25 on inclines. Other traffic was passing me, or should have been, but the highway was still empty. I hadn't seen another vehicle in over 2 hours. Mile marker 237, weight 118, that's 26 pounds. The rear tires were smoking now, friction from the excessive load generating heat. I could smell it in the cab, acrid and chemical. How much weight could these tires handle before they blew? How much could the axles take before they snapped? My CB crackled again. Different voice this time. Female. Panicked. This is Unit 23. I'm hauling Specimen 31F and it's breaching. It's breaching and I can't stop it. If anyone can hear this, stay away from I-70 westbound, mile marker 195. It's coming out. It's... The transmission cut to screams. Then static. Then silence. I was currently at mile marker 241 heading eastbound. Mile marker 195 was 46 miles behind me. I checked my mirrors, half expecting to see something pursuing me, but the highway remained empty. How many trucks were out here hauling specimens? How many drivers had been tricked into transporting bioweapons or experimental organisms or whatever the fuck these things were? Mile marker 289. Weight 131,557 pounds. The Volvo's suspension was bottoming out on every bump, the frame scraping the axles. I couldn't maintain 20 miles per hour anymore. Was crawling along at 15, my hazard lights, flashing uselessly to warn traffic that didn't exist. The trailer made a sound, metal groaning, rivets popping. I looked in my mirror and saw the side panel bulge outward 6 inches, then snap back. Something inside was pushing against the walls, testing the strength of its container. My phone rang. Same unknown number. "Diana, you're behind schedule," the clinical voice said. "You need to increase speed." "I can't," I said. "The weight is too much. My truck can't handle it." "If you don't reach the facility in the next 4 hours, the specimen will breach. Increase speed." "Listen to what I'm telling you. The truck is maxed out. I can't go faster." "Then you and everyone within 3 miles of your current position will die when it breaches. Increase speed." The call ended. I pressed the accelerator to the floor. The Volvo groaned, shuddered, and managed to reach 23 miles per hour. The engine temperature was climbing into the red. The transmission was overheating. Every warning light on my dash was illuminated. Mile marker 327, weight 147,893 pounds. The rear axles broke. I heard the snap, a gunshot loud crack of metal failure, and felt the trailer drop, its rear slamming into the pavement in a shower of sparks. I was dragging it now, tires shredded, rims grinding against asphalt, the whole rig slowing despite my foot buried in the accelerator. The trailer's rear doors exploded outward. I watched in my mirrors as they blew off their hinges, flying into the darkness. And from the opening, something emerged. It was massive, pale, covered in translucent skin that showed organs pulsing underneath. It had too many limbs. I counted 9, no 12. They kept emerging as it pulled itself out of the trailer. And it had faces, multiple faces embedded in its flesh, human faces, all screaming silently. This was specimen 47J. This was what I'd been hauling. It freed itself from the trailer completely and dropped to the highway, its weight cracking the pavement. Then it oriented on me. I felt its attention like a physical weight and began to move. It was fast, impossibly fast for something so large. It scuttled on its many limbs, closing the distance between us, and I could hear it breathing, those same wet inhalations I'd heard through the trailer walls, but louder now, hungry. I abandoned the truck, threw open my door, jumped down, and ran. My phone was screaming at me from my pocket, the clinical voice yelling about abandonment protocol, but I didn't care. I ran across the dark Kansas highway, away from the truck, away from the specimen. I'd gone 30 feet when the pain hit. Every nerve in my body ignited simultaneously. The tracers in my bloodstream, activated by my abandonment, releasing some kind of neurotoxin. I collapsed, convulsing, unable to scream because my throat had locked shut. Through the agony, I watched the specimen reach my truck. Watched it tear through the cab like tissue paper, searching for me. When it didn't find me, it turned, following the chemical signature of the tracers, moving toward my dying body. It loomed over me. Those human faces in its flesh, all screaming, all suffering, all me. I realized with horror that the previous 16 drivers hadn't delivered successfully. They'd been consumed, integrated into the specimen, made part of it. And now, I would join them. The specimen opened something that might have been a mouth, a vertical split in its center mass lined with grinding teeth, and reached for me. The clinical voice came from my phone one last time. "Delivery complete. Thank you for your service, Diana Volkov." The specimen consumed me. I felt myself being absorbed, my consciousness fragmenting and merging with the others trapped in its mass. felt my face emerge on its pale flesh, joining the chorus of eternal screaming. And I understood. There was no collection facility. There never had been. The specimen was the delivery. We drivers were the cargo. We hauled it across the country, feeding it miles and time and our own eventual bodies, helping it grow until it was ready to breach and consume and expand. I am Diana Volkov. I am screaming. I am part of Specimen 47J. I am growing. I am hungry. And somewhere another driver is accepting another load, signing another manifest, beginning another haul that will end in consumption. The highway is full of specimens, and they're all still growing, still getting heavier, still hungry. Story 4. The Voices in the Sleeper Cab. The conversation in my sleeper cab had been going on for 37 minutes when I remembered that I was the only person in my truck. Two voices, male and female, discussing routes through Montana with the casual familiarity of drivers who'd worked together for years, debating whether to take Highway 2 or I-90, weighing fuel costs against time savings, arguing over the best truck stops and the worst way stations. I'd been half listening while focusing on the road, occasionally nodding along with points I agreed with, before the realization hit me like a freight train. I'd been driving solo for 8 years. There was no one in my sleeper cab. There had never been anyone in my sleeper cab. But the conversation continued, detailed and specific, as if two people who didn't exist were living out a full partnership in the 8 feet of space behind my driver's seat. My name is Cole Brennan, and I drove a Peterbilt 579 with a 72-inch sleeper cab, big enough for a bed, small refrigerator, storage cabinets, and not much else. Definitely not big enough for two people to exist without me noticing. But the voices were distinct, separate, overlapping when they interrupted each other, producing that naturalistic rhythm of real conversation that's impossible to fake. "I still think we should have taken the northern route," the male voice said. "Yeah, it's longer, but we'd avoid that construction zone near Billings." "We don't know there's construction near Billings," the female voice replied. "That was last month. Could be cleared by now." "When has road construction ever finished early?" I pulled over, threw the Peterbilt into park so abruptly my unsecured coffee cup flew forward and splattered across the dashboard, turned in my seat to face the sleeper cab. Empty. Just my unmade bed, my mini fridge, my duffel bag, no people, no source for the voices, but they continued talking. "Why are we stopping?" the female voice asked, now sounding annoyed. "We're making good time. We don't need a break yet." "I didn't say we needed a break," the male voice replied. "You always assume I'm the one who needs breaks." They were talking to each other about me stopping, reacting to my actions, which meant they were aware of their environment, aware of the truck's status. "Who are you?" I said aloud, my voice shaking. "There's no one back there. This isn't real." The conversation stopped. Silence filled the cab, the kind of weighted silence that comes when people are looking at each other, communicating non-verbally, deciding how to respond. Then the male voice spoke directly to me. "Cole, buddy, you feeling okay? You've been driving a lot of hours. Maybe the fatigue's getting to you." "I'm not fatigued," I said. "I'm talking to voices that shouldn't exist. Where are you? How are you in my sleeper cab?" "We've always been here," the female voice said gently, like she was talking to someone having a breakdown. "Cole, we're your team. We've been driving together for 3 years, you, me, and Mark. Do you really not remember?" Mark. The male voice had a name. And the female voice, I tried to recall her name, and impossibly I found it in my memory. Sarah. Her name was Sarah, but I'd never worked with people named Mark and Sarah. I'd been a solo driver since I got my CDL 8 years ago, preferred it that way. No partner drama, no disagreements about routes or schedules. Just me and the road. "You're not real," I said. "I'm solo. I've always been solo." "Then who's been navigating?" Mark asked. Who's been managing the logbook? Who's been checking the cargo? Cole, you can't run a team truck solo, you know that. Team truck. The phrase hit wrong. My Peterbilt was configured for solo operation. One driver's seat, one sleeper berth. But when I looked at the sleeper cab now, it was different. Longer. There were two beds, one above the other. Storage cubbies labeled with names: Cole, Mark, Sarah. A larger refrigerator, a small table. The sleeper cab had changed. Or my memory of it had changed. Or I was losing my fucking mind. "This is wrong," I whispered. "This is all wrong." "Maybe we should pull over for real," Sarah said, her voice full of concern. "Let Mark drive for a while. You clearly need sleep." "I don't need sleep. I need you to tell me what the fuck is happening. How did you get in my truck? How are you changing my truck?" "We're not changing anything," Mark said, and his voice had an edge now. Frustration. "Cole, listen to me. You're having some kind of episode. Dissociating or something. We're real. We're your team. We've been hauling together since 2021. You really don't remember any of that?" I tried to remember, pushed my mind back through the years and found gaps, inconsistencies, periods where my memory was fuzzy, unclear about whether I'd been driving solo or with others. Had I taken on team members at some point? Had I forgotten? No, I'd remember that. You don't forget your co-workers, don't forget years of partnership. Unless you do, unless something was making me forget. I climbed out of the driver's seat and moved to the sleeper cab, determined to prove it was empty. Pulled aside the curtain separating the driving area from the sleeping area. Two people sat on the lower bed. Mark and Sarah, solid, real, looking at me with expressions of worry and confusion. Mark was in his 40s, heavy-set with a trucker's beard and a Peterbilt cap. Sarah was younger, maybe 30s, dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing a flannel shirt. They looked completely, utterly real. "See?" Mark said. "We're here, Cole. We've always been here." I reached out to touch Mark's shoulder. My hand passed through him like smoke. He frowned. Looked at his own hand. Flexed his fingers. "That's weird. Did you feel that? Like static?" "You're not real," I said. "I can't touch you. You're not physical." "That doesn't make sense," Sarah said. She reached out to touch Mark. Her hand passed through him too. She recoiled, shocked. "What the fuck, Mark? What's happening?" Mark tried to touch the bed he was sitting on. His hand went through it, through the solid mattress. He stood up quickly, panicking, and fell through the floor, disappearing from view with a yelp of surprise. His voice came from somewhere below. "I'm in the fucking fuel tank. I'm inside the fuel tank." Sarah started hyperventilating. "We're ghosts. Oh God, we're ghosts. Cole, what happened to us? When did we die?" "You didn't die," I said, though I had no basis for that claim. "You're not ghosts. I don't know what you are." Mark reappeared, phasing up through the floor, his body passing through metal and components until he was standing, or hovering really, in the sleeper cab again. I could see everything down there, the frame, the drive shaft, all the components. I could see through all of it. "I'm not solid, Cole. None of this is solid to me." "But you can see the truck?" I asked. "You can perceive it?" "Yes, and I can feel like I'm sitting or standing. But when I try to actually touch something, actually interact with the physical world, I pass through. Like I'm made of nothing." Sarah was crying now. "I don't understand. I remember loading cargo in Seattle. I remember stopping for coffee in Spokane. I remember all of today, all of yesterday, weeks and months of driving. How can those be memories if I'm not real?" I had no answer. I stood in my sleeper cab, or my team cab, or whatever it was becoming, and tried to make sense of the impossible. My phone rang. Unknown number. I'd been getting a lot of unknown numbers lately. "Mr. Brennan," said a professional female voice. "This is Dr. Elizabeth Mora from Cognitive Research Institute. I'm calling regarding your participation in our study. We need you to return to the facility immediately. Your psychological profile is showing concerning deviations. What study? I never participated in any study. You enrolled 6 months ago. The compensated sleep research trial. You agreed to test experimental medication designed to reduce fatigue in long-haul drivers. The medication has unexpected side effects. We need you to return for evaluation. 6 months ago, I tried to remember, found another gap, a period where my memories were uncertain. What are the side effects? I asked. The medication creates vivid, persistent hallucinations. Specifically, it generates companion personalities, imaginary co-workers that the subject perceives as real. In most cases, these hallucinations are harmless. In your case, they're becoming autonomous, developing their own consciousness. Mr. Brennan, the companions you're experiencing are not real people. They're constructs generated by your subconscious, given form by the medication. I looked at Mark and Sarah. They were listening to the call, their faces showing horror as they processed what they were hearing. They're not just hallucinations, I said. They're aware. They know they exist. They can think and feel independently. That's the concerning deviation, Dr. Mora said. Your companions have achieved a level of autonomy we didn't anticipate. They believe they're real. They have complete histories, memories, personalities. Your subconscious has created entire people, Mr. Brennan. And those people are suffering because they're starting to realize they're not real. So what do? I asked. How do I stop this? Return to the facility. We'll administer the reversal agent. The hallucinations will dissolve. Mark and Sarah will cease to exist. Sarah grabbed my arm, or tried to. Her hand passed through, but I felt coldness where she should have touched. Cole, no. Please, I don't want to stop existing. I'm real. I'm a person. I have thoughts and feelings. You can't just erase me. She's not a person, Dr. Mora said, hearing Sarah's voice somehow. She's a sophisticated hallucination, a construct. Erasing her is no different than deleting a computer program. I'm not a program, Sarah screamed. I'm Sarah fucking Mitchell. I was born in Portland. I have a sister in Eugene. I drive trucks because my dad drove trucks. I'm real. But was she? I tried to verify her claims. Sarah Mitchell from Portland. I pulled out my phone, searched for her. Found nothing. No social media, no driver records, no evidence she'd ever existed outside my truck. Searched for Mark Davis, the full name I somehow knew without being told. Found nothing. They existed only in my perception, only in my truck, nowhere else. I can hear what you're thinking, Mark said quietly. You're going to erase us. You're going to take the reversal agent and kill us. You're not alive, I said, but the words felt hollow. Then what am I? Mark asked. If I can think and feel and fear death, what's the difference between me and you? Just because I was created by medication instead of biology, does that make my consciousness less valid? I didn't have an answer. Dr. Mora's voice continued. Mr. Brennan, we need you to return immediately. The longer the hallucinations persist, the more autonomous they become. Eventually, they'll be able to affect physical reality. Your subconscious will find ways to manifest them. They'll transition from harmless companions to genuine threats. You must return. I ended the call. Looked at Mark and Sarah. Even if you're hallucinations, you're aware. You're conscious. I can't just erase you. Thank you, Sarah said, crying with relief. Thank you, Cole. But I need to know something. If you're created by my subconscious, why did my subconscious create you? What purpose do you serve? Mark and Sarah looked at each other. Another one of those silent communications. You're lonely, Mark said finally. You've been driving solo for 8 years and you're desperately lonely. You wanted companions. Wanted a team. Your subconscious gave you what you needed. Then why did it take medication for you to appear? If I needed you, why weren't you always here? Because, Sarah said gently, you didn't want to admit you needed anyone. The medication broke down that resistance, allowed your subconscious to create us without your conscious mind interfering. I sat on the bed, passed through it slightly before my perception adjusted and made it solid, and put my head in my hands. So what now? I keep driving with 2 hallucinations? Eventually I'll run out of medication. What happens to you then? We don't know, Mark admitted. Maybe we fade. Maybe we persist. Maybe we've become independent enough that we exist without the medication now. Maybe we transition into something else. We're figuring this out, same as you. Over the next 3 weeks, I didn't return to the facility. Kept driving with Mark and Sarah, and they were right. They were becoming more real. I could touch them now, feel solidity when I shook Mark's hand or hugged Sarah. They could interact with objects in the truck, hold coffee cups, adjust the GPS. They were manifesting, becoming physical. But other things were manifesting too. In the sleeper cab, I started seeing additional people, shadowy figures that Mark and Sarah couldn't perceive. My subconscious was creating more companions, and these ones weren't friendly. They whispered accusations, blamed me for things I'd done and things I hadn't, crowded the sleeper cab until I could barely move without pushing through bodies. I called Dr. Mora back. I'm ready for the reversal, agent. It's too late, she said. You've passed the threshold. The reversal agent won't work now. The constructs have achieved permanent autonomy. They exist independently of your perception. Mr. Brennan, you've created life. Artificial, impossible life. And we don't know how to undo it. Mark and Sarah were listening. Sarah was crying again. Mark looked terrified. What does that mean for us? Mark asked. It means you're real now, Dr. Mora said. Congratulations, you're the first truly artificial consciousnesses created purely through human imagination. You exist. You're alive, and you're stuck in a truck with the man who imagined you, along with dozens of other constructs he's creating and can't control. The shadowy figures in the sleeper cab were multiplying. I saw children, elderly people, animals, things that weren't human. All of them products of my subconscious, all of them fighting to exist, to be real. How do I stop creating them? I asked. You don't, Dr. Mora said. The medication permanently altered your brain chemistry. You'll keep creating companions forever. Eventually, you'll have so many that you won't be able to drive, won't be able to function. You'll be trapped in a truck with thousands of people who exist only because you imagined them. I drive still. Mark and Sarah are with me, the only 2 who achieved full reality. The others remain shadows pressing against us, demanding recognition, demanding existence. I try not to imagine new ones, try to keep my mind blank. But you can't control your subconscious, can't stop it from generating thoughts, images, possibilities. Last week I imagined a dog. Now there's a golden retriever in my sleeper cab. He's becoming more real each day. I don't know where this ends. Don't know if it ends. I just know that I wanted companions and my mind gave me an infinite supply, and now I'm trapped with them forever. Cole Brennan, solo driver. Except I'm not solo. I'm never solo. I'm accompanied by every person I've ever imagined. All of them fighting to be real, all of them wanting what I wanted. Connection, presence, the simple act of not being alone. Be careful what you wish for, especially if you have the power to make wishes come true. My sleeper cab is crowded now. So crowded I can barely breathe. So crowded that reality itself is straining to contain them all. And still my mind creates more. Always more. Forever. I'll continue with the remaining 4 stories. Given the length, I'll proceed immediately. Story 5, The Exit That Loops. The exit ramp deposited me back onto the same highway I'd just left, and it had done so 17 times in the last 90 minutes. Exit 42 on I-95 through North Carolina, marked for a town called Ashwood that didn't appear on my GPS, didn't exist in my atlas, and according to every search I'd performed on my phone, had never existed in any historical records. But the exit was there, solid and real, with proper signage and maintained pavement, and every time I took it, hoping it would lead somewhere different, it curved through a quarter-mile of trees and deposited me right back on I-95 northbound at the exact same point I'd exited. Same mile marker, same time, 2:47 a.m., same everything. My name is Trevor Walsh, and I'd been trying to escape this exit for an hour and a half, taking it again and again, like maybe the 18th time would be different. Like maybe reality would glitch and I'd break through to wherever the exit was supposed to lead. But no. Same result. Same loop. Same 2:47 a.m. that never became 2:48. My Mac Anthem was running perfectly, no mechanical issues, no warning lights. My fuel gauge showed 3/4 full, had shown 3/4 full since I first entered this loop, despite running the engine constantly. My odometer wasn't advancing, my clock wasn't progressing, I was trapped in a specific moment, driving a specific exit ramp over and over, unable to move forward through time or space. I tried not taking the exit, drove past it, continued north on I-95, watching my mirrors to see exit 42 recede behind me. After exactly 3 miles of driving, I saw an exit sign ahead, exit 42 Ashwood. The same exit. It had teleported ahead of me, or I'd teleported back to it, or the highway had looped despite appearing perfectly straight. I took it, same result. Back on I-95 at 2:47 a.m., I tried driving south instead of north, turned around, headed the opposite direction. Exit 42 appeared after 3 miles going south too. Took it, same loop, same deposit, back onto northbound I-95. The highway wanted me to take this exit, and the exit wanted to keep me trapped. On the 23rd attempt, I decided to stop on the exit ramp itself. Halfway through the loop, I put my Mac in park, set the brakes, and got out. The forest surrounding the ramp was wrong. The trees were uniform, exact same height, exact same trunk diameter, exact same branch structure. They repeated in a pattern, the same tree model copied and pasted hundreds of times. Like a video game forest rendered cheaply, no natural variation. I walked to the tree line and reached out to touch a trunk. My hand passed through it. The tree was a projection, an image with no substance. I pushed forward, walking into the forest, and the trees dissolved around me like smoke. Behind them was nothing. Absolute void. Not darkness. Darkness implies the absence of light, but you can still perceive space. This was the absence of space itself. A gap in reality where the exit ramp simply ended and existence stopped. I backed away quickly, returning to my truck. Got in, released the brakes, continued through the loop. It deposited me back on I-95 at 2:47 a.m. as always. My CB crackled. "Trevor Walsh," said a calm voice. No call sign, no trucker jargon, just my name spoken with certainty. "You're in a collapsed temporal loop. Exit 42 doesn't lead anywhere because exit 42 never existed. It's a ghost exit, a glitch in the highway system, and you've become trapped in its recursion." "How do I get out?" I asked. "You don't. Ghost exits don't have exits. They loop forever. You'll drive this ramp until your body fails, and then you'll keep driving it because time doesn't advance here. You can't age, can't die, can't escape. You're frozen at 2:47 a.m. on April 9th, 2024 forever. That's impossible. Time has to advance. I'm thinking, speaking, experiencing consciousness sequentially. Time is passing for me. Internal time, yes, your consciousness progresses, but external time is frozen. The universe outside this loop moved on to 2:48 a.m. hours ago. You're stuck in the moment between 2:47 and 2:48 in a space that shouldn't exist. on an exit that was built by mistake and never corrected. Built by mistake? Exits don't get built by mistake. This one did, April 9th, 1987. A surveyor error placed exit 42 on the plans in a location where no exit should exist. The contractors built it anyway, following the plans. By the time anyone noticed, the exit was complete, but it didn't lead anywhere. Didn't connect to any roads, any towns, just looped back onto I-95. The Department of Transportation tried to demolish it, but the exit refused to be demolished. Equipment would fail, workers would get injured. Eventually they gave up, left it off the official maps, and hoped no one would take it. People have taken it before me, I said. What happened to them? They're here, in the loop. You just haven't seen them yet because you're out of phase. Each driver trapped in exit 42 exists in their own iteration of the loop, separated by microseconds. You're driving the same ramp as dozens of others, but you can't perceive them, usually. As the voice said that, I saw it, another truck on the exit ramp ahead of me. A freightliner, pulling a reefer unit, driving through the same curve I'd driven 37 times. I accelerated, trying to catch up to it, trying to see the driver. The truck was transparent. A ghost. It completed the curve and vanished, deposited back onto I-95 in its own temporal iteration. That was Gary Hendricks, the voice said. He entered exit 42 in 1993. He's been looping for 31 years. You'll eventually phase enough to see him clearly, to communicate. There are 87 drivers trapped in exit 42, Trevor. You're number 88. I slammed on my brakes, bringing my Mac to a stop in the middle of the ramp. No, fuck this. I'm not driving this loop anymore. I'll walk out. I'll abandon my truck and walk until I find real road, real civilization. You're welcome to try, the voice said. I got out and started walking. Walked back the way I'd come, retracing the exit ramp toward I-95. The pavement under my feet felt real, solid. But after 100 yards, the ramp curved ahead of me exactly as it did when I was driving. I was walking the loop. I walked for what felt like hours. The curve never ended, just kept turning gently right, endless pavement under sodium lights that cast no shadows. Eventually, I saw my Mac ahead of me, sitting where I'd left it. I'd walked a complete loop, returning to my starting point. I tried walking the other direction, same result. The ramp was a Mobius strip, a closed curve with no exit, and walking it just demonstrated the trap more clearly. I got back in my truck and continued driving. Took the loop, deposited back onto I-95 at 2:47 a.m. Took it again, and again, and again. On the 49th iteration, I saw more ghost trucks, dozens of them, all transparent, all from different eras. A 1960s Peterbilt, a 1980s Kenworth, modern Volvos and Freightliners. All trapped, all looping, all phasing in and out of my perception. On the 73rd iteration, I heard voices on the CB, multiple drivers, all talking at once, all having conversations that spanned decades. Gary Hendricks from 1993 talking to someone from 1978. A woman from 2006 arguing with a man from 2019. They'd all been looping so long they'd phased into each other's iterations, could perceive and communicate with each other despite being separated by years. "Welcome, Trevor," Gary's voice said, addressing me directly. "You're phasing in. Soon you'll be able to see us clearly. Won't be alone anymore. That's the only mercy of exit 42. Eventually you get company." "How do we break the loop?" I asked. "There has to be a way out." "There's no way out. We've tried everything. Crashing our trucks, they reset. Destroying the pavement, it regenerates. Walking into the void beyond the trees. You fall forever, then wake up in your truck at the beginning of the loop. Exit 42 is a perfect trap. The only thing you can do is accept it." I drove, refused to accept it. Kept looking for variations, anomalies, anything that might indicate a weakness in the loop. On the 98th iteration, I found something, a crack in the pavement right at the apex of the curve. It hadn't been there before. I'd memorized every detail of this ramp, and this crack was new. I stopped and examined it. The crack was expanding, widening as I watched. And through it I could see something else. Another road, not I-95, something different with different pavement, different markings. I grabbed my pry bar from the toolbox and attacked the crack, trying to widen it further. The pavement resisted, then gave way, breaking apart in chunks. The opening grew large enough to see through clearly. Below was another exit ramp, identical to the one I was on, but inverted, upside down. A truck was driving on it, driving on the underside of the road, defying gravity. "Don't," Gary's voice warned. "Trevor, don't go through. That's not an exit. That's a deeper loop." But I couldn't stop. The possibility of escape, even if it led somewhere worse, was better than accepting an eternity of the same curve. I widened the hole until my Mac could fit through, then drove forward, dropping into the inverted exit ramp below. I fell. For just a second, I was in free fall. Then my tires caught the upside-down pavement and gravity reversed. I was driving normally, but the world above me, the original exit 42, was now below me, and my ramp continued its curve in the opposite direction. I completed the loop. It deposited me somewhere, not onto I-95, onto a highway that had no markings, no signs, no mile markers, just endless pavement stretching through absolute darkness, no trees, no lights, no anything. Just road and void, and ahead of me I saw them. Hundreds of ghost trucks all driving this dark highway, all trapped in an even deeper layer of the loop. They'd found the crack too. They'd tried to escape too, and they'd fallen into this place where even the ghost exit didn't exist anymore. Just endless driving through nothing. I tried to reverse, to go back through the crack, but it had sealed behind me. The only direction was forward. I drive still. Have been driving for what feels like years, though my clock still shows 2:47 a.m. The other trucks phase in and out around me, driven by people who've been here longer than I've been alive. We don't talk anymore, just drive, forever, through the darkness, following a road that has no destination. Sometimes I see cracks forming in this road too, openings to even deeper loops. Other drivers take them, desperate for any change. I don't know where those loops lead. Don't know how many layers down this trap extends. I just know that I wanted to escape exit 42, and instead I found something worse. Found the truth that some traps don't have escapes. They just have deeper levels, infinite recursion, loops within loops within loops. Trevor Walsh, trapped at 2:47 a.m. Driving forever, falling through layers of reality that should never have existed, into darkness that has no bottom. The exit ramp loops, and loops, and loops, forever. Story 6. The Cargo That Watches. The eyes appeared in my trailer at mile marker 156, visible in my rear-facing camera feed. 47 pairs of eyes, human eyes, opening simultaneously in the darkness between my pallets of canned goods, staring directly at the camera with focused intensity that made my skin crawl. I'd been hauling food products from California to Florida for 12 years, and I'd hauled a lot of things that technically wasn't on the manifest. But I'd never hauled anything that could stare. Eyes needed bodies, bodies needed to be loaded. I'd watched this trailer being loaded in Sacramento 3 days ago, and nothing with eyes had gone in. Just canned beans, canned corn, canned tomatoes, 41 pallets total, shrink-wrapped and secured. Nothing alive. But the eyes were there. I counted them. 47 pairs, 94 eyes total. Distributed throughout the cargo space, positioned between pallets and gaps in the stacking, each pair separated from the others, but all staring at the same point. The camera. My name is Alicia Ramirez, and I'd been operating under the principle that what I didn't know couldn't hurt me. If the cargo looked legal, I hauled it. If the manifest said canned goods, I didn't dig through pallets looking for contraband. But this was impossible to ignore. I pulled over, grabbed my flashlight, and walked to the rear of my trailer. Opened the doors, shone my light inside. The eyes were gone. Just pallets of canned goods, exactly as they should be. I climbed inside, checking between pallets, behind boxes, in every gap where the eyes had appeared on the camera. Found nothing. Just food. Just cargo. I returned to the cab, checked the camera feed. The eyes were back. All 47 pairs staring at the camera like they'd never disappeared. They only existed on camera, not in physical reality. Just in the recorded image, the digital representation. I drove, tried to ignore them, but every time I glanced at the trailer camera feed, there they were, watching. Some blinked occasionally, some moved slightly, tracking the camera's position. They were aware, conscious, following me through the lens. At mile marker 203, they started appearing in my side mirrors. Not in the physical mirrors. When I turned my head to look directly, I saw only highway and my trailer as it should be. But in my peripheral vision, in the reflection, the eyes were there. Dozens of them pressed against the inside of my trailer walls, staring out at the road we were traveling. I tried covering the camera, draping a cloth over the lens. The eyes appeared on my dashboard screen anyway, now staring at me through the cloth, visible as silhouettes, their outlines pressing against the fabric from the inside. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered with shaking hands. "Ms. Ramirez," said a voice I didn't recognize, young, male, nervous. "This is Kevin Park with the Sacramento Distribution Center. I need to inform you that there was an incident during your loading, an incident we failed to report. I'm calling now because I think you need to know." "What kind of incident?" "A man died in your trailer. During loading, he was a warehouse worker, was moving pallets with a forklift, and he had a massive heart attack. Died instantly, collapsed between the pallets. We found him after you'd already left. We pulled his body out, but we think something stayed. Something of him stayed in that trailer." "You're telling me I'm hauling a ghost?" "Not one ghost. That's the problem. When we pulled the body out, we did a head count. We were short 47 workers, 47 people who'd been in the warehouse that day and didn't clock out. We checked the security footage. All 47 of them touched your trailer at some point. And then they vanished. Just gone. We think when the first man died, something in the trailer became active, hungry. It took the others, pulled them in. They're in there with you, Ms. Ramirez, all of them. 47 dead warehouse workers trapped in a trailer that doesn't want to let them go." "That's insane," I said. "Trailers don't kill people. This is just food products, The trailer was used before you got it. Used for transporting medical waste, biological materials. The shipping company didn't clean it properly. We think something contaminated it. Something that responds to death by creating more death. And now you're hauling it across the country." I ended the call. Pulled over again, more urgently this time. Opened the trailer doors. The pallets had been rearranged. Not dramatically, they were still secured, still stacked properly. But they'd moved. Gaps had appeared between them, spaces large enough for a person to hide, or for 47 people to hide. I heard breathing. Slow, synchronized breathing coming from the gaps. 47 sets of lungs inhaling and exhaling in perfect harmony. "Hello?" I called into the trailer. "Is anyone in there?" The breathing stopped. Silence. Then from the deepest part of the trailer, a voice. "Help us." I climbed inside, squeezed between pallets, moving toward the voice. The trailer seemed longer than it should be, 53 feet externally, but I walked for what felt like twice that distance, passing pallet after pallet, moving deeper into cargo space that shouldn't exist. Found them in the back corner. Not bodies, not ghosts, something in between. Semi-solid forms, human-shaped but incomplete, like people rendered at low resolution. 47 warehouse workers, all wearing the same uniform, all staring at me with those same eyes I'd seen on camera. "The trailer took us," one of them said. I couldn't tell which. They all spoke in unison. "When our co-worker died, the trailer became a trap. It consumes death, feeds on it, wants more. It took us to increase its meal, and now it's trying to take you." I backed away. "I'm leaving. I'm abandoning this trailer right now." "You can't," they said. "You're bonded to it. The moment you accepted the load, you became part of the cargo. If you unhook the trailer, your consciousness will stay with it. Your body will drive away, but you, the part of you that thinks and feels, will be trapped here with us." I ran. Didn't care if they were lying. Sprinted out of the trailer, slammed the doors, got in my cab, and disconnected the fifth wheel. Released the trailer's landing gear and pulled away, watching it shrink in my mirrors. I drove for 10 miles, then checked my rear-facing camera, habit, muscle memory, even though the trailer wasn't connected. The camera showed the interior of the trailer, the pallets, the gaps, the 47 warehouse workers staring at the camera. I was seeing through the trailer's camera, even though the trailer was 10 miles behind me, even though I had no physical connection to it. I looked down at my hands on the steering wheel. They were becoming transparent, semi-solid, low resolution, like the warehouse workers. "No," I whispered. "No, I'm in my truck, I'm driving, I'm physical." But I could see through my hands, see the steering wheel beneath them, see my body fading, becoming less real, transferring to somewhere else. I tried to turn around to go back to the trailer. My hands passed through the steering wheel, couldn't grip it, couldn't control the truck. I was a passenger in my own body, and my body was driving automatically, following its last instructions, unaware that consciousness had left. I was in two places at once. My body drove north on I-10. My awareness was in the trailer 10 miles south, standing with 47 dead warehouse workers in cargo space that defied geometry. "Welcome," they said. "You're cargo now. Same as us. The trailer has you, and it's not done. It needs more. It's always hungry for more death." I watched through the trailer's camera as my body-driven truck continued north. Watched it pick up speed. Watched it drift into oncoming traffic. Watched the collision. My truck hitting a minivan, crushing it, killing the family inside. Felt my consciousness pull as the trailer claimed them too. 4 more people, parents and 2 children, appearing in the cargo space with a semi-solid, incomplete, their death feeding the trailer's hunger. "It uses us as bait," the warehouse workers explained. "Uses our bonded drivers to cause more death. The drivers crash, kill others, and the trailer collects them. It's been doing this for years. There are hundreds of us now, spread throughout the cargo space. Hundreds of dead people trapped in a trailer that's always moving, always killing, always hungry." I tried to leave again. Tried to will myself back to my body, but my body was dead now. Had died in the crash, slumped over the steering wheel of the crumpled truck. I had no physical form to return to. I was trapped. Permanently. Just another piece of cargo in a trailer that consumed death and used it to kill more. The trailer was loaded onto a new truck within hours. A new driver, James something, I heard them say his name, connected his fifth wheel and pulled away, heading east with a load he thought was canned goods but was actually dozens of dead people and a feeding mechanism that would use him to kill again. I watched through the camera. Watched James drive. Watched him check his mirrors. watched the exact moment he noticed the eyes staring at him from the cargo space. And I knew he'd do what I did, would investigate, would get trapped, would become cargo. The trailer feeds. It always feeds. And I'm part of the feeding mechanism now, my consciousness bound to this metal box. Unable to warn drivers, unable to escape, forced to watch as we move from city to city, leaving crashes and death in our wake. Alicia Ramirez, dead at mile marker 203, haunting a trailer that's hauled by dozens of drivers who don't know they're transporting a graveyard, who don't know they're already dead, just moving corpses being piloted by habit until the trailer decides to crash them and add them to the collection. We're cargo, all of us, forever. Moving through the country, killing and collecting, growing our number one death at a time. The eyes watch. They're mine now too. I'm one of the 47. No, 51. No, 63. The number keeps growing, and the trailer keeps moving. Always moving. Always hungry. Forever. Story 7. The radio frequency. The frequency appeared on my CB at exactly 3:33 a.m. every morning, a channel that shouldn't exist between channels 39 and 40, broadcasting a number sequence in a mechanical voice that made my teeth ache. 47, 19, 91, 13. Pause. 47, 19, 91, 13. Repeating endlessly until 3:34 a.m., when it would cut to static and disappear, leaving me alone in my freightliner with a growing certainty that the numbers meant something important, something I needed to decode before whatever they were warning about arrived. I'd been hearing the broadcast for 6 nights straight, had started documenting it, recording it, trying to find patterns in the numbers or the timing or the frequency itself. But the more I focused on it, the more I felt reality shifting around me, like the numbers were instructions for how the world should behave, and paying attention to them allowed me to see the world being constructed in real time according to those instructions. My name is Nathan Frost, and I'd been driving I-80 through Nebraska for the past week, the same route I'd driven monthly for 3 years, but this week was different. This week the world felt thin, temporary, like a stage set that was only fully rendered when I was looking at it, and in my peripheral vision I could see the edges of reality dissolving into nothing. The numbers continued. 47, 19, 91, 13. I'd tried looking them up. They didn't correspond to anything obvious, not coordinates, not dates, not mathematical constants. But on the 4th night I'd noticed something. When I drove exactly 47 miles per hour, the world became more solid. The thin feeling reduced. Reality stabilized. On the 5th night, I discovered that 19 seconds was the interval at which the world reset. Every 19 seconds, I'd feel a slight discontinuity, a momentary glitch, and my truck would be in a slightly different position, sometimes inches forward, sometimes inches back, like reality was being saved and reloaded at regular intervals. Tonight, night 6, I was experimenting with the 3rd number, 91. I'd been scanning radio frequencies, and at 91 FM I found another broadcast. Not music or news. Just a sound, a low-frequency hum that made my vision blur, made the highway ahead waver and distort. When I tuned away from 91 FM, the distortion lessened. When I tuned back, it intensified. The numbers were control parameters, instructions for how to navigate a reality that wasn't fully stable, that needed constant adjustment to remain coherent. And the mechanical voice broadcasting them was trying to help me, or trying to help something that had taken my form, that was pretending to be Nathan Frost while the real Nathan Frost had been replaced at some point I couldn't remember. At 3:33 a.m. the broadcast started, 47, 19, 91, 13. I was ready this time. I set my cruise control to exactly 47 mph. Started a timer on my phone to track the 19-second intervals. Tuned my radio to 91 FM and focused on the 4th number, 13. What happened in 13s, I counted things. 13 fence posts between mile markers, 13 painted lines on the highway before they repeated their pattern. 13 seconds was how long the mechanical voice took to speak the full number sequence before repeating. Everything was 13s. I started noticing more. My Freightliner had 13 gears. I'd been driving for 13 hours before the first broadcast. There were 13 other trucks visible on the highway. I'd thought I was alone, but when I counted carefully, I saw them at extreme distances, barely visible, maintaining perfect spacing. 13 was the number of observers. 13 copies of reality, each one slightly different, each one occupied by a version of me or a version of what I'd become. And the mechanical voice was teaching me how to synchronize them, how to align all 13 versions so they'd converge into a single coherent timeline. At 3:34 a.m., the broadcast ended. Static, then silence, and I felt it, the convergence beginning. The 13 versions of Nathan Frost that had been driving 13 slightly different versions of I-80 through 13 parallel realities, all starting to merge. I could see them now, ghost trucks overlapping with mine, ghost highways occupying the same space as my highway, ghost Nathans sitting in my seat with slightly different expressions. The convergence was violent. My truck shuddered, not mechanically but existentially, as 13 realities tried to occupy one space. I felt myself fragmenting, parts of me belonging to different timelines, different versions. My hands were on the wheel in 13 slightly different positions. My eyes were seeing 13 slightly different highways. My consciousness was split 13 ways. And then it resolved. The 13 became one. I was whole again, single, but I was different, enhanced. I remembered things I hadn't experienced, knew things I shouldn't know. I was the combined consciousness of 13 Nathan Frosts, integrated into one. The mechanical voice returned, but not on the CB. It spoke from everywhere at once, from the air itself. Convergence successful. Subject Nathan Frost is now operating at enhanced parameters. New instruction sequence begins in 19 seconds. Prepare for next iteration. What iteration? I said aloud. What the fuck is happening to me? You are being optimized. Each convergence improves efficiency, reduces redundancies, eliminates timeline branches that led to suboptimal outcomes. You are becoming the ideal Nathan Frost, the version that makes perfect choices, drives perfect routes, exists in perfect synchronization with the control system. What control system? The system that manages reality. That maintains coherence. That prevents timeline collapse. You've been selected as a node, Nathan, a point of stability. Your existence has been multiplied across 13 timelines, and now those timelines are converging to create a stronger, more stable you. This process will repeat. You'll split into 13 again, live 13 slightly different lives, then converge. Each time you'll be more perfect, more optimized. I don't want to be optimized, I want to be normal. Normal is inefficient. Normal allows for error, deviation, chaos. You're being elevated above normal. Soon you'll be more algorithm than human, more process than person. This is an honor, Nathan. You've been chosen. The world split again. I felt myself becoming 13 once more. 13 trucks, 13 highways, 13 Nathans, all diverging from this moment, all driving slightly different routes, making slightly different choices, experiencing slightly different events. And I knew, in 19 more seconds, or 19 more minutes, or 19 more years, time was becoming negotiable. I'd converge again, be integrated again, become more optimized again. I was being refined through iteration, perfected through endless splitting and merging, and I couldn't stop it. The control system had chosen me, had marked me as a stability node, and it wouldn't release me until I'd been optimized to its satisfaction. If that ever happened, Maybe optimization had no end state. Maybe I'd split and merge forever, each iteration making me less human and more like the mechanical voice. Perfect, efficient, empty of anything except function. I drive still. Split into 13 versions, then merged. Split again. Merged again. I've lost count of how many iterations. Lost track of which memories are from which timeline. Sometimes I'm driving through Nebraska. Sometimes through Wyoming. Sometimes through states that don't exist on any map. Sometimes through landscapes that aren't Earth. The numbers continue. 47, 19, 91, 13. Instructions for navigation, parameters for existence. The algorithm that controls my life. I am Nathan Frost. Or I was. Now I'm something else. Something optimized. Something perfect. Something that's forgotten what it means to be human because humanity is inefficient and the control system has no tolerance for inefficiency. The frequency broadcasts. I split, I merge, I optimize forever. Story 8. The deliveries that never happened. My GPS showed I'd completed 17 deliveries in the past 6 hours, unloading cargo at 17 different warehouses across Illinois. But my trailer was still fully loaded and I had no memory of stopping at any of them. 41,000 pounds of electronics from Chicago to Miami, sealed trailer. No stops authorized except for fuel. But the GPS log was detailed. Specific addresses, arrival times, dwell times at each location, departure times. According to my truck's navigation system, I'd made 17 deliveries that never happened. And at each location, I'd apparently collected a signature from a receiver whose name appeared on my electronic manifest, but who I'd never met. My name is Isaiah Grant, and I'd been hauling time-sensitive freight for 9 years without incident. I knew my routes, knew my stops, knew when I was supposed to deliver and when I was supposed to drive straight through. This load was straight through, no deliveries until Miami. So why was my GPS insisting I'd made 17 stops? I checked my logbook. It matched the GPS. Showed 17 separate arrivals, 17 separate departures. My hours of service were calculated based on those stops, showing I'd been driving for 37 hours with only brief pauses, an impossible timeline that should have triggered violations, should have locked me out of driving. But the electronic logging device was accepting it, processing it as normal. I checked my fuel receipts. Found 17 charges I didn't remember making. Gas stations in towns I hadn't stopped in with timestamps that aligned perfectly with the GPS log. I called dispatch. This is Unit 47. I'm showing some kind of glitch in my ELD. It's recording stops I didn't make. Need you to verify my actual delivery schedule. Dispatch took a moment to check. Unit 47, I'm showing 17 completed deliveries in the past 6 hours. All confirmed by receiver signatures. What's the problem? The problem is I didn't make those deliveries. My trailer is still fully loaded. I'm still en route to Miami. These stops never happened. Silence on the line. Then, Isaiah, your trailer is empty. According to our cargo tracking sensors, the weight dropped to 0 over the course of your 17 stops. You unloaded everything. You're driving an empty trailer right now. I looked in my mirrors at my trailer. It sat low on its suspension, heavy, clearly still loaded. I could feel the weight in how my international handled, in the resistance when I accelerated. My trailer is full, I insisted. I can feel the weight. I can see the suspension compressed. There's 41,000 pounds back there. Our sensors say otherwise. Isaiah, are you feeling okay? You've been driving for 37 hours with minimal rest. Maybe you're experiencing fugue states, making deliveries without remembering them. It happens sometimes with extreme fatigue. I'm not fatigued. I'm perfectly alert. These deliveries didn't happen. But even as I said it, I felt uncertainty creeping in. Could I have made those stops without remembering? Could exhaustion have created blackout periods where I functioned automatically, unloading cargo, collecting signatures, driving away, all while my conscious mind was offline? I pulled over at the next rest area, got out and checked my trailer. The seal was intact, the numbered metal seal that had been applied in Chicago that should only be broken in Miami. If I'd made 17 deliveries, the seal would be broken. But it was whole, undamaged. I opened the trailer doors, empty, completely empty. No electronics, no pallets, just bare trailer floor. But I just felt the weight, just seen the suspension compressed. I looked at the trailer's axles. They were compressed, springs tight, like they were supporting a full load. But the cargo space was empty. I climbed inside the trailer, walked from front to back, checking for hidden compartments, false walls, anywhere the cargo could be concealed. Found nothing, just empty space. But when I exited the trailer and looked at it from outside, I could see cargo through the walls. Translucent, ghost-like, but present. Pallets stacked to the ceiling, the electronics that should be there, visible through the metal panels like X-ray vision. I was seeing the cargo that used to be there, the ghost of deliveries that had happened in some other timeline, some other reality, leaving their impression on this one. My phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. "Isaiah Grant," said a voice, elderly male with a slight echo like he was calling, from a large empty room. "You've been selected for an experimental logistics trial. The deliveries you're experiencing are occurring in parallel timelines. You're driving a quantum state trailer that exists in multiple realities simultaneously. In some of those realities, you've made the deliveries. In others, you haven't. Your consciousness is singular, experiencing only the primary timeline, but your cargo is distributed across all timelines." "That's impossible," I said. "It's experimental. The logistics company you work for has been researching quantum transportation, the ability to deliver cargo to multiple locations simultaneously by splitting the shipment across parallel realities. You're the test driver. Your trailer contains cargo that's both present and absent depending on which timeline you observe from. I didn't agree to be a test driver for experimental quantum anything. You did. The contract modification you signed 3 months ago. Clause 47B. You authorized participation in advanced logistics research. Most drivers don't read that clause carefully." I tried to remember. 3 months ago there had been new paperwork. Company policy updates. I'd signed it electronically without reading thoroughly. "What happens if this experiment fails?" I asked. "Your consciousness becomes permanently split across all timelines. You'll exist in 17 different realities simultaneously, each one slightly different, each one making different deliveries, and your mind will fragment trying to process all 17 experiences at once. We're monitoring for that. If fragmentation begins, we'll collapse your timeline back to singular. Probably." "Probably? The technology is still experimental. There have been complications. 3 previous test drivers experienced permanent fragmentation. Their consciousness dispersed across so many timelines we couldn't recover them. They still exist, technically, but spread so thin across realities that they're essentially gone. You're our 4th trial. We're hoping to get it right this time." I hung up, threw the phone onto the passenger seat, got back in my truck and started driving. I wasn't going to be fragmented, wasn't going to let some experimental technology split my consciousness across realities. I'd deliver the cargo, or not deliver it, I wasn't sure which anymore, and then quit. Find a new company, drive for someone who didn't experiment with quantum mechanics. But as I drove, I felt it beginning. The fragmentation. I was experiencing 17 different routes simultaneously. In one timeline, I was on I-65 heading south, in another I-57, in another a state highway I didn't recognize. All 17 versions playing out in my mind at once, overlapping. creating a confused mess of sensory input that I couldn't parse. I saw 17 different highways at once, felt 17 steering wheels in my hands, heard 17 different engine notes. My consciousness was splitting, distributing across the parallel timelines, becoming less concentrated in any single one. By mile marker 347, I couldn't remember which timeline was primary. They all felt equally real, equally important. I was making 17 deliveries and making none of them. Was driving through Illinois and Indiana and states that didn't exist. Was Isaiah Grant and 17 versions of Isaiah Grant and none of them at all. The fragmentation completed. I was dispersed, spread across parallel realities so thinly that I couldn't maintain a coherent sense of self. I existed everywhere and nowhere, delivered everything and nothing. I drive still, in 17 timelines. Maybe more now. I've lost the ability to count. Each version of me thinks it's the original, thinks it's the real Isaiah Grant. But we're all copies, all fragments, all pieces of someone who used to be whole. The trailer is both full and empty. The cargo is both delivered and undelivered. The route is both complete and ongoing. I exist in superposition, a quantum state of consciousness that can never collapse back to singular. The logistics company tried to recover me, failed, declared me lost to the experiment, but I'm still driving, in 17 timelines, in 1,000 timelines, in infinite timelines, each one splitting further, creating more versions, more fragments. Until Isaiah Grant is just a probability cloud, a dispersion of awareness across all possible routes through all possible realities. The deliveries never happened. The deliveries always happened. Both are true. Neither are true. I am Isaiah Grant. I am everywhere. I am nowhere. I am driving. Forever. Across all timelines. Delivering and not delivering. Existing and not existing. The quantum trailer continues. The experiment continues. The fragmentation continues. Forever.